On the day I was found by my biological parents, I brought a drag oil bottle. The fake daughter covered her handkerchief and smiled. Where did the little scoundrel come from? Why did my sister bring it back to the home mansion? The nominal fiancé directly refused to marry the queen. Righteous words. My son must not marry such an unclean woman. He relied on being the emperor's only son to force my mother to withdraw from his family. I silently agreed. It's okay, I bothered to save it. After all, the one I brought back to the house was his own brother. 1. In the Thingy Palace, the queen sat quietly on the phoenix collapse, with a little difficulty on her face. At her start, the concubine in the goose-yellow palace costume was crying hard. The lady has to make the decision for the second prince. Your Majesty only has one son, His Highness. If he marries a woman who has given birth to a child as a concubine, wouldn't it make people laugh out of their teeth? As he spoke, he looked at my mother and complained angrily. Mrs. Ho too, why didn't she even figure out who her daughter was, seeing that the second prince was about to marry a wife, so she said that the one in the house was fake. It's okay if you make a mistake, why bother to take it to the surface, pinch your nose and admit it. You have to let the newcomers recognize their ancestors and implicate the second prince and make a joke. Your Highness, such a noble person was trampled on by the filthy things in your house in vain. The mother sighed and bowed to the queen again. My mother doesn't know, Giaro is my daughter who was pregnant in October, but she was killed by a traitor, and wandered outside for more than 10 years. I really can't bear to have her marriage robbed, and let that cheap maid and a woman take advantage. As soon as the words fell, concubine Lien suddenly stood up, her eyes were faintly tearful, and she was aggrieved in anger. What does Mrs. Ho mean? Isn't it referring to Sang scolding Huai and burying this palace? The mother was slightly stunned, with a little embarrassment on her face. Only then did I remember that my mother had said that this concubine was originally a foot-washing maid next to the queen mother. Because of an accident, she was favored, and she thought that she would just give a lower position, but she didn't want her to have a body and give birth to the only prince. Only then did the tide rise and the concubine was sealed. Today's emperor does not value desire, and the relationship with the emperor and queen is not harmonious, but it seems that she is the only one in the harem. Over the years, in the name of the birth mother of the second prince, Kay considers herself the future Empress Dowager, and hates others mentioning her former identity the most. Okay. The queen interrupted her without hesitation. This palace knows this matter in my heart, but this marriage was specially decided by the queen mother during her lifetime, and now that the queen mother is dead, I still want to ask your Majesty what you mean. After hearing this, concubine Lien glared at me hatefully. Anyway, such a girl who is not ashamed or angry, casually hangs out with men, Our Highness will never want it. After saying that, he threw off his sleeves and left angrily. 2. In the carriage back, my mother was half propped up and looked tired. I gently pinched the acupuncture points on her shoulder. After a long time, she sighed faintly. I don't know if it's right or wrong to take you into the palace today. I thought I was an orphan girl abandoned by my parents. Later, I found out that I had secretly dropped the bag without telling my mother. And in my place, it was my father's illegitimate daughter who was outside. It replaced my identity as the eldest lady of the home mansion, replaced my favor, and the prince's fiancé. After a while, I said softly, Mother should know that the royal family will not agree to the second prince marrying me. Why do you have to go through this? She raised her eyes and smiled. If you don't enter the palace, how can you let the outside know your true identity? Do you know that I hid it from your father and grandmother on this trip to the palace today? They want to hide this matter from the outside world, claim that you are your cousin's niece, and let that girl completely replace you. How can I agree to this? As he spoke, he looked at me, with a faint hint of hatred suppressed in his eyes. I want to make a big deal out of it and let them dream. After returning to the house, my mother first accompanied me to Kaiweiyuan to see Brother Yi. He was still young and slept soundly on the collapse. As soon as he sat down, a servant came to report, saying that the old lady had invited. The mother sneered coldly, and withdrew her hand from Brother Ye's face. It came pretty fast. I'll meet them. He got up and looked at me, with a little sadness on his face. I don't have anything here but you've. If I had known, I would have had a good relationship with concubine Lien at the beginning, but I offended her, and I was afraid when she became the queen mother. Hey! When I came back, I probably knew a little bit about it. My mother was very liked by the queen mother when she was young, and her temperament was also noble, so she didn't look down on concubine Lien's style. I frowned slightly. Why does my mother think that concubine Lien will definitely be the queen mother? She rubbed her temples and shook her head lazily. It's not that I think so, it's everyone who thinks so. Your Majesty has not had many heirs, and only the second Prince Anqing has grown up among the princes for so many years. Who else can there be besides him? You can't abandon your own son to adopt one, right? I lowered my eyebrows and said thoughtfully. What if your Majesty has more than one son? The mother suddenly laughed. That's naturally excellent, if your Majesty still has a son, as long as the position of the mother and concubine is acceptable, those old ministers in the Golden One Hall will not guard the second prince. It's just that, how is it possible, your Majesty doesn't even enter the harem much now, let alone pregnant concubines? She laughed dumbly and patted me on the arm. I'll go first, you take care of Brother Yi. I looked at Xiaoting's peaceful sleeping face, and reached out to touch the ink dragon jade in his clothes. After looking at it carefully, he put it back in. I closed my eyes slightly and took a deep breath. This piece of jade was given to me by my husband on the day of my bridal chamber. He once laughed and talked about how he had nothing to do and didn't know who he was, so he only gave me this jade and passed it on to his children in the future. I have also seen such jade on the second prince today. It turned out that on the day of parting, he didn't lie to me, he was really an emperor. 3 years ago, I accidentally lost my virginity in order to save a strange man. He had no memory, and he said he would take responsibility for me. Without relatives and blessings, we simply worshipped heaven and earth. However, in just half a year, he said that he had regained his memory, and that I could no longer be his wife. He also said that he had a wife and children, and asked me if I could be a child for him. I was hoarse and asked him why. He was silent for a long time and replied, I am the emperor. I sneered and smashed my luggage on him, not knowing whether I believed it or not. I'd rather be a poor wife than a rich man's concubine. Get out of here. He left, let me wait for him before leaving, and he would let someone pick me up after taking care of everything. How could I agree? The day after he left, I burned this place and turned to leave. It was at that time that I found out that I was pregnant. After another 3 years, I was found by my mother's people, and became the real daughter of the Ho mansion. 3. Early the next morning, I learned that there was a big commotion in the front yard yesterday. My grandmother was so angry that my father handed over the housekeeping to Aunt Chun in a fit of anger. The mother locked herself in the yard, and began to shut herself up. Forsythia cried and recounted yesterday's incident. It turned out that my father and grandmother were dissatisfied with my mother's own opinion, and they originally intended that the fake lady would marry me as me, but now it was a mess, and the concubine not only didn't want me but even the fake lady disliked it. Also for his father, it is all his blood, what is the difference, and even the matter of changing sons back then, he may not know it in his heart. Only the second prince and the fake lady have been childhood sweethearts since childhood, and when they heard that the marriage had changed, they had already gone to the Qianqing palace to beg His Majesty. After noon, someone came to look for me, saying that the second prince had arrived and asked me to go to the main courtyard. I frowned slightly and hurriedly followed. When I arrived, my mother was already there. Her face was pale, her eyes were bloodshot, as if she hadn't slept well. I patted her on the arm comfortingly and stood beside her. The second prince glanced at me and snorted coldly. Qiutong, your wild sister is really good at causing trouble. My mother and concubine pulled me to cry for a long time yesterday. If it weren't for my father's love for me, our marriage would probably fall apart. With a drag oil bottle, you still want to marry the royal family as a wife, and you don't see if you have face. He Chiotong is the illegitimate daughter who occupies my identity, a fake lady. She pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes rolling. Your Majesty is the one who loves your Highness the most, but isn't the position of this concubine a bit wrong to my sister? I chuckled in my heart and hurriedly looked at my mother. She smiled miserably and shook her head. What are you wronged, my father said, as long as she sends the child out to raise, giving her the position of a side concubine is already to promote her. After all, I am the only son of my father, she is just a village girl from the countryside, could it be that my father can still wrong me for her? Only then did I know that the emperor not only agreed to the marriage of the second prince and He Chiotong, but also mentioned the identity of a county lord to He Chiotong. When I come here, I am asked to send the child away and be a concubine to the second prince, which is not a violation of my promise to the Queen Mother. In the end, the second prince is his own son, what a good thought. A faint pain welled up in my heart, knowing that he didn't know my identity, but I still couldn't suppress my grievances. 4. After the second prince left, I went to my mother's room. She looked tired and said, Jiaro, I'm sorry for you. She leaned on the soft collapse, half opened her eyes, and smiled bitterly. Your Majesty, it is about to establish a prince, so I am in a hurry to pave the way for the second prince. He knows that your father doesn't like you, and the second prince likes Chiotong, so he is willing to promote her. The plan couldn't keep up with the changes, and according to her mother's plan, she made a big deal out of it, and concubine Lien definitely didn't want her two daughters. It can not only hit the whole mansion, but also correct my identity, and keep me and Brother Yi by my side openly. After countless calculations, I didn't expect that His Majesty would intervene, and use the marriage of the daughter of the whole mansion to promote the second prince. I heard that there are candidates for the positions of the four-side concubines, and Mayday is not a powerful family, only me, who is stained with the light of the Queen Mother. These marriages are afraid that they will be finalized after the palace banquet. Since that day, the house has become a lot more lively. My grandmother's illness was cured, my father was in good spirits, and even the servants walked with the wind. This time, the sick person became the mother. When He Chiotong came to serve the sick, he smiled meaningfully. Why bother, mother? The organ calculates, not to make wedding dresses for others. Haven't you forgotten that it is your Majesty who is in charge now, not the Queen Mother? The mother was so angry that she leaned on the bed and coughed while stretching out her fingers to tell her to get out. She raised her eyebrows and moved her gaze to me with a smile. What is my mother doing so angry? Today I come to serve my mother, and my sister will come to serve me in the future. If my mother bullies me like this, I am not afraid of retribution on my sister. TSK, the side concubine sounds good. In the final analysis, she is a concubine, but fortunately, I am not that intolerable, so I won't have to grind my sister. Pfft. A mouthful of blood spat out of my mother's mouth, her face as white as paper. I raised my hand and smashed the teacup over and shouted angrily, "Get out." The water splashed and wet her skirt. She curled her lips unwillingly, and didn't say anything more. 5. After returning to the room, I was quiet for a long time. Since I returned home, my mother has been the only one who has been good to me. I didn't feel good about her appearance when I saw it. First me, then my mother, the next step, it should be Brother Yi. Closing my eyes, I clenched the Mo Long Yu in my hand. I must not be this concubine. There is no reason to marry the father first and then the son. It seems that I have to think long term. Before I could figure it out, there was news from the house that the palace was going to hold a palace banquet to celebrate the birthday of the concubine. Because of her low status, concubine Lien has never held a birthday banquet, and now it is the first time. Thinking about it, as my mother said, the emperor wanted to establish a prince, so he lifted up the people around him. Since the second prince sent the letter, He Chiotong has been pleasing the concubine, and now he is going to hold a birthday banquet, and he is even more eager to get ahead. What's more, the second prince faintly hinted that His Majesty might marry them on this day. After more than 10 days, the palace banquet arrived as scheduled. My mother lifted her spirits and tried her best to take Chiotang and me to the banquet. Afraid of affecting his reputation, He Chiotong had a lot of lives along the way, and he didn't dare to be a monster again. There I met Pei Xiangbai. It was the first time I saw him in 3 years. He has changed a lot, sitting on the dragon chair in a golden silk-embroidered dragon robe, with a handsome face and a calm posture, looking stable and majestic, awe-inspiring. It seems that the man who treated me as a treasure and whispered to seduce me at a loss no longer exists. My mother sat beside me, gently took my hand and whispered, "Be careful, don't look directly at your majesty." I heard that His Majesty was injured during a private visit in disguise 3 years ago, and he has changed a lot since he came back, and his temperament is not as good as before. Don't provoke him by saying or doing things inappropriately. I nodded, lowered my gaze, and hid myself in a corner. After 3 rounds of wine, concubine Lian became more and more proud, and pestered the emperor to ask him to issue an imperial decree. Today is her home court, and the emperor also gives him face. With a wave of his hand, a eunuch stepped forward with an imperial edict. Feng Tianqingyun, the emperor issued an edict saying, "The daughter of the Marquis of Dingyang, He Chiotong, the county lord of Anping, is gentle, kind, virtuous, and generous, and now marries the second prince Pei Yu as the main concubine, and the eldest daughter Hejiro has outstanding appearance and is given to the prince's side concubine, and the marriage is chosen on a certain day." The words fell to the ground, and the queen sighed lightly. "Your Majesty, whether to give Jiro a title or not, is it the child set by the queen mother?" From my point of view, the emperor frowned slightly, and his face was a little impatient. "It's just a side room, what title do you want?" I didn't even care that she gave birth to a child, and being a side concubine was already promoting her. "Don't discuss this matter again, the second prince is a noble family of the heavenly family, what kind of woman can't be wanted? Even if you are a concubine, you have to be grateful to Dade." My body shook slightly, and my heart tightened. He actually said this about me. There was something warm in my eyes, and I could hardly control myself from crying. I hardly even heard my mother calling me. "What's wrong, Jiro? It's time to thank you." Only then did I notice that He Chiotong had already knelt in the center of the hall, and began to thank him. Suppressing the tears in my eyes, I slowly walked to her side with my head down and knelt down. A strong malice of revenge suddenly surged in my heart, and I knelt down and bowed my head, aggravating my voice word by word. "My daughter, thank you for your great grace." There was silence all around. With a bang, the sound of the teacup breaking. The tea flowed down the table, ticking. I faintly felt a burning gaze burning on me, and then, a bright yellow figure appeared in front of me. His whole body was tense, and his voice trembled. "You, raise your head." 6. The atmosphere was strangely frozen, and everyone's eyes were focused on me. I propped up my palms, slowly raised my head, and knelt down straight. Pei Xiangbai's face turned white inch by inch with my movements, and even his lips trembled. I stared at him faintly and said nothing. Soon, he closed his eyes slightly, and when he opened them again, it was already clear. He put one hand behind him, looked around, and had a panoramic view of the people below, and then looked at my father. "Your daughter is very much like an old friend of mine," reasonably explained his gaffe just now. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. At the next banquet, he didn't look at me again, but was somewhat absent-minded while laughing and chatting. After half a cup of tea, he got up to leave. When concubine Lian saw that he was leaving, she hurriedly put her whole body on it, hugged his arm, and acted coquettishly. Pei Xiangbai paused, subconsciously glanced at my position, took off concubine Lian's hand and comforted. "Nonsense, I still have something important, I'll accompany you another day." The concubines in the back row also stood up and saluted. I retracted my gaze and drank with my sleeves covered. I secretly sneered in my heart. Isn't there a wife and children, and even a bunch of concubines? After drinking a cup, a palace maid refilled wine for me and accidentally wet the hem of her skirt. Seeing her unhurried appearance, I felt relieved. It's Pei Xiangbai who wants to see me. Sure enough, she led me to a remote palace. Pei Xiangbai was standing on the windowsill with his hands on his back. He changed into plain clothes, looking a bit like before. He stared at me tightly, his dark eyes surging, and his voice hoarse. Why don't you say goodbye? Why don't you wait for me? You came to the capital, why didn't you come to find me? I couldn't answer 3 whys in a row, so I simply lowered my head and didn't speak. He anxiously took a step forward and grabbed my shoulder. Jiaro, answer me. I slowly pushed his hand away, and a malicious smile condensed on the corner of my mouth. Your Majesty, please respect yourself, my daughter has just given the second prince's concubine, and her identity is different. He was slightly stunned, his face turned blue in an instant, and he started pacing angrily. Are you blaming me? You know that I don't know that person is you, if I know, how could it? I looked up and sneered. Your Majesty naturally doesn't know, Your Majesty is busy paving the way for your own son, and giving him a side concubine, what's the point? A woman who has lost her virginity, and has children is promoted even if she is a concubine. That's someone else. He turned around suddenly, his eyes scarlet. How can you be the same? The moment he met my gaze, he seemed to realize something and paused slightly. That kid. Is it mine? In half a year in the countryside, I have never seen his changeable expression. At this moment, this face had a little hope, and he looked at me cautiously. After a while, I nodded. He instantly rejoiced and hugged me into his arms. Jiaro, don't worry, I will find a way to bring your mother and son back. Don't worry about the concubine's affairs, I will take care of it. I raised my head and looked at this strange and familiar face. A man in his 30s, the years have not carved many marks on his face. He is handsome, and he is rich all over the world. I have heard of his past deeds. He ascended the throne at a young age, and was born an emperor. From civil and military officials to the common people, they all praised each other. He has the capital of pride and the ability of 3,000 harems. I shouldn't have cared about such a person. I lowered my eyebrows and didn't answer. 7. After returning home, everyone was tired and went back to their rooms to rest. Early the next morning, they all gathered in their grandmother's room to say hello. He Chiotong was lying in her grandmother's arms acting coquettishly. Her grandmother stroked her long hair and beat her mother lightly. Your Majesty wants to establish a crown prince. This matter has already been put on the surface. Chiotang will be a serious crown princess in the future. You don't want to be partial to that outsider. If you can't distinguish the priorities, the mistress of the He family will really have to be replaced. Saying that, he glanced at me. And the wild child brought by Jiaro, the palace has already sent someone, and when you mother and son say goodbye, send the child away, and never come back, so as not to upset the emperor and his highness. My mother's originally calm face suddenly cracked. No. This child, even if he is sent away, I should send him away. How can he dispose of it at will? Grandmother knocked down her crutches heavily and angrily scolded, Bastard, there are people in the palace in person, how can you speak? My mother still wanted to open her mouth, but I gently shook her sleeves and shook her head silently. After waiting for 2 days, I didn't expect Pei Xiangbai's movements to be so fast. In Brother Ye's room, the palace people were already waiting. It was Duke Xu, the celebrity around His Majesty. When he saw me, he smiled and bowed humbly. Don't worry, girl, the emperor has explained it, and the servant will never dare to wrong the little master. Ye is a smart child, she didn't cry or make trouble. He only looked at me and was carried into the carriage by Duke Xu. I lowered my head, my eyes red. This kid has never left me. Zhu Gong'an comforted, don't worry, girl, the creation of the girl and the little master is still to come. A burst of hurried footsteps sounded. It's my mother, and there are He Chiotong and the others behind her. My mother's face was pale, and she staggered to run to the carriage. Why are you so fast, Brother Yi? I stopped her, threw myself on her shoulder and cried softly. I was taken away. His fingers inadvertently pinched her palm. She was stunned, looked at Duke Xu who nodded at her, and then looked at me, thoughtful. At this time, He Chiotong also arrived, and her face was flushed, as if she was in a hurry. Looking at Duke Zhu's eyes, he was delighted. The servant said that there was someone in the palace, but I didn't expect it to be Duke Zhu. I really neglected it. Can I have a cup of tea before leaving? Duke Zhu smiled and shook his head, still with a respectful look on his face. Miss, you're polite, don't bother if we still have something to do. Then don't disturb your father-in-law, trouble your father-in-law to go there in person. The emperor really cares about His Highness, and even helps His Highness deal with such trivial matters personally. Duke Zhu half squinted his eyes, but smiled silently. After the people left, she glanced at me contemptuously, quite self-satisfied. How much does your Majesty attach importance to the second prince, do you see it now? If you still want to leave that evil seed, then it depends on whether your Majesty agrees. I ignored her and took my mother back to Weijiayuan. There was no one around, and my mother sat directly opposite me and said solemnly, Jiaro, tell me honestly, whose child is Brother Yi? I sighed slightly, it's your Majesty. What? She stood up straight and stared at me. It's actually your Majesty. So at concubine Lian's banquet yesterday, His Majesty lost his temper in public because he recognized you, right? I nodded. She sat back again, and the nails holding the armrest were white, which was enough to see the excitement and complexity in the owner's heart. No wonder. I didn't expect it to be like this. It turned out to be so. Saying that, he looked up at me again. Your Majesty, when will you take you back to the palace? I paused for a moment and asked, Mother thinks, should I enter the palace? She frowned, a little surprised. Naturally, you want to enter the palace. You are the biological mother of the prince. Where can you go without entering the palace? I fell silent and did not answer. It seems that everyone thinks that I should enter the palace obediently. There, it is already my best way out. But no one knows, I originally wanted to find an ordinary person to be a righteous lady and live a safe life. But right now, I have no choice. 8. The two young ladies of the Ho mansion were about to get married, and the house gradually became lively. As the marriage was being prepared, a heavyweight news suddenly came out of the palace, catching the people all over the capital off guard. In his grandmother's room, He Chiotong almost fell off his chair in shock. What did you say? Does the emperor have a prince among the people? How is this possible? My father also paced irritably. It's true, I personally brought it in this morning, and in front of the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty. I even did a blood test, not to mention, the child looked very much like the late emperor. Grandmother turned pale. Your Majesty attaches so much importance to this child. What is the meaning? Where is the second prince? My father paused and sighed slightly. It's hard to say. I only know that today's second prince is no longer your Majesty's only choice, and now I only hope that the child's mother is not from a high background. He Chiotong's eyes lit up and he took a step forward. Who is the mother of that child, and where is she? It is said. My father frowned, his tone was a bit strange. I am losing my temper with your Majesty, and I refuse to come back in the Taoist temple. Temples. My eyebrows moved slightly. It turned out that Pei Xiongbai planned like this. He wanted to send me to the Taoist temple, and get rid of the name of the second prince's concubine before entering the palace. My mother exchanged glances with me, and my heart was clear. In the next few days, news came out of the palace from time to time. It is said that the emperor loves the little prince very much, and he has to take it with him personally when he eats and sleeps, and he doesn't know how many vases in the palace of the hated concubine have been broken. Su had nowhere to vent, so concubine Lian sent palace people to pick me up and He Chiotong into the palace, saying that she wanted to teach the rules. She has a shallow temperament. I'm afraid she wants to toss you. My mother frowned, a little annoyed. Your Majesty, why hasn't there been any movement yet? That's it. If it's too much tossing, I'll ask the Queen. The Emperor and Queen have always been at odds, and if it is not a major event, the Queen rarely comes forward, and it is estimated that it will be useless to find her. But I didn't care. If I entered the palace, I might be able to see Yi. I haven't seen him in a long time. He Chiotong and I got into the carriage into the palace. The mother expected it well, and the concubine was indeed not good. In the Changle Palace, she held her nails dyed by Fenglanwa, smiling without smiling. You two, one from the countryside and the other from the wrong way, this palace is worried that you will not be able to serve the second prince well, so I specially asked my grandmother to teach you the rules, and in the future, the two of you will come to me for a few hours a day, don't delay. When I returned home, my mother sent someone to teach me the rules. Although it is not as good as He Chiotong, it is also impossible to make a mistake. But after a few days, it was obvious that concubine Lien intended to target me. For example, she once again threw the teacup at my feet and scolded me coldly. You can't even serve tea, isn't your mother the most knowledgeable about the rules, didn't she even teach you this? The water stains stained the skirt, and it was a mess. I was taken down to change clothes. Su has been standing for a long time, and his mind is dizzy. It wasn't until I entered the side room that I finally realized that something was wrong. There was a faint sound of conversation outside the door. Are you sure she drank it? Don't worry, mother, I saw it with my own eyes. It is He Chiotong and Lien Fei. A woman who is not clean and dare to come to occupy a side concubine of the emperor's son, and don't see if she is worthy. So what the queen mother has decided, this palace hates others using the queen mother to suppress this palace. And her mother, the one I hate most in my life is her, relying on the queen mother to like to gossip, hypocritical to the extreme. Mother, will something happen if you do this? What are you afraid of? The queen mother is already dead, and the emperor is now focusing on the little prince, but if you die as a side concubine, it doesn't matter. Concubine Lien, she wants to harm me. I struggled to escape from the maid, but I didn't have the slightest strength. Concubine Lien's high sigh sounded in her ears. The girl from the He family is really powerful, I'm afraid I can't teach her. Okay, you send people back. I didn't catch it in one breath and I fainted. When I woke up, I was in the carriage, my limbs were sore and weak, and I struggled to lift the curtain, and it was the coachman on weekdays. There is a barren area around, and there is a cliff not far away. Seeing me wake up, he kept moving, the carriage was speeding faster and faster, and his face was clearly determined to die. It turned out that he had been bought a long time ago. Seeing that I was getting closer and closer to the cliff, I felt a strong sense of fear and unwillingness in my heart. I don't want to die, I haven't seen Brother Yi yet, I can't die. Seeing that on the edge of the cliff, the horse let out a long howl, and even the person and the car overturned out, and the whole person fell uncontrollably into the abyss. At the last moment, the wind howled, and one hand grabbed me. When I opened my eyes, I saw Pei Xiongbai holding me in his arms worriedly. Jiaro, wake up Jiaro. The joy and fear of the rest of my life almost drowned me out, and I fell into his arms crying almost uncontrollably. Why are you here? He stroked my long hair regretfully, it's my fault that I have wronged you. The delicate face of concubine Lien came to mind, and I grabbed his collar hatefully and gritted my teeth. It's concubine Lien, it's she who wants to kill me. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his expression was complicated, I know. I didn't pay attention, trembling my fingers and trembling angrily. She insulted me again, and even killed me. Abai, you want to avenge me? The air became quiet, leaving only the wind howling. After a long time, I realized something was wrong, and then I looked up at him. His hand took it from my black hair, and let out a long sigh. Jiao, you have crossed over. I was stunned, looking straight at him, and my heart sank little by little. This person was once a man who even wanted justice for me if I was calculated to overcharge a few cents, and a man who didn't let me suffer the slightest grievance. Now when I am the rest of my life after the disaster, tell me coldly that you have overstepped. Noticing my gaze, he pursed his lips a little awkwardly. I know something happened to you, so I put down everything and came to find you in person, for fear of being late and having an accident. Jiaro, you also have to think about me. The crown prince is about to be established, I can't move the concubine at this time, can you wait? After all, she is the mother and concubine of the second prince. The whole person seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar, completely cold. I thought I was different in his heart. After a pause, I said softly, "What about Brother Yi?" He was silent for a moment. "I have been thinking for a long time. I naturally love Yi, but the rumors of making the second prince the crown prince have already spread. If it is changed at this time, the second prince may have no way to survive in the future. Jiero, the second prince is also my flesh and blood, don't embarrass me, okay?" 9. I was sent to the Taoist temple by Pei Xiangbai. At parting, he told me that when the wind passed, he would send someone to pick me up and welcome me into the palace. I spent 3 days in a daze. On the 4th day, the queen came. She was dressed in night clothes, holding a long sword, and was heroic. That was the first time I saw her full of vitality, unlike on weekdays, who was calm and peaceful like a living dead. I silently poured her a cup of hot tea. "Mother, you won. I agreed to what you said." She looked happy and sat leisurely across from me. "It's good if you can figure it out. I told you long ago that His Majesty has love for you, but it stops there. If you don't plan for yourself and Yi, you will die miserably. Do you think Your Majesty really doesn't know that you were bullied in the palace of the concubine? Do you know what Your Majesty said? He said that you are stubborn, because you can't be a wife, you have to leave home with your children, and you can also hone your temperament by learning some rules of course. He also makes people pay attention to it, and it won't really make you suffer, which is why he found out that you were killed in time." These are all told to me by Duke Zhu himself. Duke Zhu is the queen's person, I knew for a long time. I made a bet with the queen on how much weight I had in Her Majesty's heart. She won, and I helped her murder the emperor. I won, and she went to the emperor to commit suicide herself. That's why there is this scene. Concubine Lian didn't know that what she had done had already fallen into the eyes of the queen. We are just calculating. On that day, if Your Majesty hadn't shown up, someone would have appeared to save me. Unfortunately, I lost. I overestimated the weight of myself and Brother Yi in his heart. He just thought that Yi might die when his second prince ascended to the throne. Why didn't he think about whether the second prince would let Yi let me go? He said he would protect Yi, but I don't trust him anymore. I agreed to the queen's request. In return, she will help me support Yi to become the crown prince. Only then did I know how much she hated Pei Xiangbai. It turned out that in order to marry her to stabilize the throne, he secretly killed her fiancé. Every day in this cage, I think about how to make him pay for Qiu Lang's life. It's a pity that he doesn't get oil and salt, and he's not good at women. He has only had one second prince under his knees for so many years, and concubine Lian is not up to the task. Until I found you, haha, the heavens live up to me. He values you, but Jiero, he values himself and his throne more. So don't just believe a man's sincerity. That night, she cried and laughed, tears streaming down her face. After that, I calmed down a lot. No longer feel sorry for yourself, muddled. The Taoist temple is leisurely, and there are not many people coming and going on weekdays. Gradually, I also heard rumors outside. It is said that the He family girl couldn't stand the teaching of the concubine and made a fuss about leaving, but she accidentally fell off a cliff while playing, and the car was destroyed and killed. Everyone sighed with emotion, and then there was no sound. Even the whole mansion said that it was unlucky and prepared for He Qiutong's marriage as usual. 10. The queen moved quickly. Not long after, news came out of the palace that the second prince was ineffective and reprimanded by His Majesty. However, this is just the beginning. Within a few days, the second prince and local officials were also exposed for embezzlement of disaster relief silver. For a while, the court was in an uproar. Hearing that the emperor was so angry, in the imperial study, he directly smashed the second prince's forehead with a paperweight. The second prince and his party were so anxious that even the concubine was hung up. I didn't expect that the energy of the queen's mother's family, the Chui clan, was so great. But also, if it is an ordinary clan, the emperor will not kill his sweetheart, and he will come to ask for marriage. Over the years, the emperor was afraid of the Chui clan, and had weakened many of their power. The queen told me that the Chui family would help me, and the third prince Pei Yi. The condition is that Pei Yi will treat the Chui family well when he ascends the throne in the future. A few days later, news came from the palace that the third prince's biological mother, concubine Chen, was to be welcomed into the palace. Concubine Chen is the title given to the birth mother of the third prince, and it is also the title given to me by Pei Xiangbai. Chen, noble and unified. I understood that Pei Xiangbai's lichu was shaken, and he began to look at Year. On the day I entered the palace, the sunlight was just right. The concubines in the harem, and the nobles were all present. It can be seen that the emperor attaches great importance to me. I wore the red gold South Zhuhai begonia phoenix crown and saluted him. The first time I dressed up like this, Pei Xiangbai looked straight. He held my hand for a long time and choked up, "Just come back." Also stunned, there were a group of ladies. I have seen them a few times during the court visits. Naturally, someone recognized me. Dare to ask concubine Chen, "But where is the Yongning Ho mansion from?" I smiled and nodded. Everyone suddenly realized that this was the case. The emperor did everything possible to come like this, just to clear my name of the second prince's concubine. It turns out that during the emperor's private visit in disguise, he met the concubine who was covered with pearls, which was really a godsend and a gratifying gift. Only a person like concubine Chen can give birth to a smart child like the third prince. During the discussion, only the grandmother and He Chiotong turned pale. Also white-faced, there was also the concubine beside the queen. She seemed to have seen a ghost, and her whole body was greatly frightened, and she retreated in disbelief. The queen pulled her amusedly, and she was startled and almost fell to the ground. That night, Pei Xiangbai stayed with me all night. The next day, I went to deliver food to him, and he lost his temper. The memorial was thrown on the ground and scattered all over the ground. A pair of dark red eyes stared at me viciously. "Jiaro, do you think I am going to change the crown prince?" I knelt on the ground, neither humble nor arrogant, I dare not. He was startled and suddenly let out his strength and waved his hand weakly. "It's not to blame you, don't worry too much." I got up and said softly, "I understand." He looked at me for a while and said with a wry smile, "Jiaro, you have changed. If you used to lose your temper and make trouble with me, even you will be separated from me." I knew I should smile and reassure him, but I didn't have the strength. What he said is that we can no longer go back to the past. The queen told me privately that the emperor still couldn't make up his mind. Although inside and outside the palace, they all wished that the second prince would fall. The second prince has done a lot of evil over the years by virtue of his identity as the only prince, and everyone pushes the wall, which has always been the case. As for the Yongning Ho mansion, they have been handing me signs. I only saw my mother, and she told me that my father asked her to pass a message, saying that the Yongning Ho mansion fully supported the third prince, and went through fire and water. My father is a smart man, one is the biological mother of the prince, and the other is an uncertain crown princess, and he knows how to choose with his toes. In order to surrender to me, he even grounded He Chiotong. The second prince lost the hearts of the people, but the third prince was talented at a young age, and the court gradually began to fall one-sided. At the same time, Pei Xiangbai's body was declining day by day, even bleeding from time to time. The imperial physician diagnosed that when the people were injured, the heart pulse was injured. The queen and I looked at each other and lowered our heads silently. The medicine was happy for a while, and most people couldn't notice it. After checking around, it was just a weakened heart. Vain. The crown prince is imminent. However, there is still an opportunity missing. This opportunity appeared when the second prince personally led troops to kill pirates in order to prove himself. He broke a leg and injured his descendants. From then on, there were no more children. The poor concubine turned white overnight, almost crying heartbrokenly. The emperor was devastated and vomited a mouthful of blood and fell into a coma. When he woke up, it was 2 days later. I spread the fold on the table and said softly, "Establish a reserve, Your Majesty." He looked at me coldly. "Who will stand?" "Your Majesty is joking. Your Majesty is a country, and one king, so naturally you can establish whoever you want." He put his hand on the desk and almost laughed out of tears. "Jiao, how did we come this far? You are all forcing me. I just want a bowl of water to be flat, but I want you to be harmonious. Why is it so difficult? Why do you have to embarrass me?" I didn't speak, studied the ink myself, and handed the pen to his palm. He sighed and held it tightly. He was very thin, and he lost a lot of strength. After the last word fell, he threw away the pen and ink and closed his eyes. "Jiao, for the sake of our husband and wife, don't kill him. I don't care about you and the queen. I don't care about your medicine for me. I only ask you for this one, leave him with a life." I was slightly stunned and agreed. Whether it is Pei Xiangbai or not, even if he is blinded for a while, he will soon be able to find out. Only this time, he knew too late. 11. The next day, the emperor was supported and personally went to the court to announce the establishment of the third prince Pei Yi as the crown prince. Cui Xiong, General Zheng and others assisted the state. He was weak and tired after a while, announcing the dissolution of the dynasty. In the imperial study, he handed me a token, weak. "This is my golden dragon guard, only listen to my orders, you hold it just in case. Cui, you must be on guard. As for the queen, she is a good person, I can't stand her. After I leave, the concubine will be buried. As for the queen, let her go." After saying that, he struggled to clasp my palm. "Jiao, I didn't tell you that those days with you in Xiangshui Bay were the fastest time in my life. I don't regret." The force of the palm slowly became lighter, and finally slipped off completely. With a cry, "The emperor has died." The tears in the corners of my eyes also slipped off completely. When the queen arrived, she was stunned for a long time. She cried bitterly at first, cried and laughed again. I had no choice but to send the person back. She grabbed me hard, her nails white. "He is dead, he is finally dead. I finally avenged Qiu Lang, ha ha ha." I sighed and turned to leave. The second prince brought He Qiutong to the keep. Since the second prince couldn't be humane, concubine Lian forced my father to marry someone. After my father asked me what I meant, he went with her. The marriage is simple, but poor He Qiutong is a widow as soon as he enters the door. When she saw me, she was like a frightened rabbit, hiding behind the second prince with red eyes. The second prince injured a leg and walked with a limp, staring at me on guard. I glanced at them and ignored them. I promised Pei Xiangbai to spare his life, so naturally I would not kill him. For this kind of person, it may be more painful to live than to die. On the day of the burial, it was my way to send concubine Lian. She looked at me in horror and stepped back. "Are you a human or a ghost? Don't come here." I grabbed her wrist and twisted it back hard. "What do you say, Lady Lian?" She was afraid to hide from me, but she was held down and had to keep screaming. "How could this happen? A person like you is not even worthy of being a concubine for my son. How can you be the queen mother? How dare you? The queen mother is mine, so I should be the queen mother." Words and deeds are rude, almost crazy. I shook the person away and nodded sideways. Soon the two palace maids walked over with the white silk. I didn't look any more, turned around and went out. 12. 2 years later, Ye grew much older, and his appearance became more and more similar to the late emperor. He had already ascended the throne, and acted like an adult at a young age. Queen Mother Cui Ru came to say goodbye to me. In the past 2 years, she has accompanied me to listen to politics and taught me bit by bit. She is the legitimate daughter of the Cui family of Qinghe, and her knowledge is naturally different from ordinary people. Now that the court is stable, you are becoming more and more mature, and you can be on your own, so I won't accompany you. I have longed for the rivers and lakes since I was a child, and I have also met Qiu Lang and the rivers and lakes, and now, I just want to return to the rivers and lakes and be a free and easy chivalrous woman. Jiao, you won't stop me. She tilted her neck and smiled at me. My eyes gradually moistened, and I turned my back and nodded. Her eyes gradually turned red, and tears slipped silently. Over the years, we have long regarded each other as our own family. 3 days later, Empress Dowager Cui died, and the ministers wept. I didn't go. As soon as I went up the city tower, I stood in the center in a palace costume, and sent her on her last journey. 1 person, 1 horse, 1 bag. Cui Ru turned her head, and waved her hand at me vigorously. I waved my hand and smiled in return. Cui Ru. The mountains are high and the water is long, and we are destined to see each other again.